Shopping for PVC enclosures can be very intimidating. More and more brands for PVC enclosures are popping up every day, which is great because they provide a lot of space for your animal while remaining lightweight, and they look very sleek. But as a consumer in the market for a PVC enclosure, I got very overwhelmed with all of the different brands at different price points and not really knowing what's best for my animal. So I'm just going to share the PVC enclosure that I purchased, how I think about it, and maybe just make someone's shopping experience a little bit better. Although this video is in no way sponsored or paid for, I will say that I got this enclosure at a pretty good deal because I know the owner. But all opinions are my own. I would never put my animal in something that I don't trust full-heartedly. And that company is TamuraDesigns. I have their 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot PVC enclosure in black with acrylic sliding doors. On their website, this exact enclosure goes for $595, which I'd say is pretty reasonably priced in the market of PVC enclosures. I've seen some for way more, and recently I've been seeing some for less, which have pretty mixed reviews. So I'd say for PVC enclosures, this is in a really good middle range for price. One of my biggest concerns for having a snake inside of an enclosure with sliding doors is that he'd be able to escape. So I really like that these come with locks, and it's a very unique lock. It's just the door handle, which I think is so creative and awesome, because then I don't have like a giant ugly lock in the middle of the enclosure that obstructs the view and whatever. This makes it super slick, and you just screw in the knob and you cannot open the enclosure. You have to unscrew the knob to open the enclosure, which is really cool to me. I will say that even though it had a really great locking system, I was still scared that he'd be able to escape, because the sliding doors always will have like a little space in between them, and although I will never know if Cygnus would be able to fit through those doors or not, I didn't want to risk it. So I have just a piece of weather stripping in between the 2 doors just to fill that gap, but it's black, so you can't even see it. I personally got the enclosure with a screen top. One thing that's really cool about TamuraDesigns is that you can customize it. There are plenty of customizations to this enclosure. So I really wanted a screen top because I didn't want the lights inside of the enclosure. I am just really afraid of my animals getting burned and stuff, so it just feels safer to me, and they were so cool about it. In fact, when I went to go pick up this enclosure, they had forgotten that I requested a screen top, and I was like, oh, hey, by the way, I wanted a screen top, and they were so great about it that they just made a new top of the enclosure for me just while I was there, which was awesome. It blew my mind. I was so thankful. Another great thing about this enclosure is that the doors are removable, and that makes it so easy to clean. I don't have to like practically crawl inside of the enclosure to clean it like I do with some of my enclosures, and that's great for me. I just take them off, spray them down, wipe them down, and just put them right back in. The enclosure in general was really easy to put together. I put it together at their warehouse because we wanted to film a video together of how easy it is to put together, and when I say it's easy to put together, it's way easier than I expected. With how sleek and professional these enclosures look, I would have never guessed that I'd be able to put them together. I'm not mechanically skilled, but you just put the pieces together and just silicone them together. I was amazed. How can silly old me put together such a beautiful enclosure? That's skill in itself, and the skill does not come from me. It comes from the enclosure builders. So that was important to me, that I would be able to build it completely by myself. I can carry it completely by myself because they're lightweight, and as a small person, that's very important to me. Obviously, bioactive enclosures are kind of my thing, so I was a little bit nervous on how much space there would be for substrate because bioactive enclosures usually need a lot more substrate than non-bioactive enclosures, and I'd say there's a pretty good amount of room for substrate. Obviously not as much as if it was just like a top opening enclosure, but I definitely made it work. I'd say if you had like a whole drainage layer and then substrate, it might be a bit of a problem, but I made it work for this one. I just kind of pack most of the substrate in the back and then just kind of have it slope down so that it doesn't overflow at the top or in the front, but I made it work. But something to think about if that's something that matters to you. One of the main things I really wanted this enclosure for was to up the humidity, and it's definitely doing a great job at that. And Cygnus has always had a hard time shedding, so this enclosure I was hoping would be perfect to give him better sheds. So we'll see how well that turns out, but so far the humidity levels have been really good. And in general, Cygnus just seems to enjoy the enclosure, which is the most important fact for me. He has way more room and pretty plants, and honestly, I just am proud of this enclosure. It just makes me happy to look at. I feel like it's my only enclosure that is honestly better than some zoo enclosures, and it just feels like a piece of art in my house and makes me feel really professional and good about keeping my animals. I think all animals should live in pieces of art, honestly, so I really enjoyed this enclosure.